Hello, and welcome back to the 5 Elements Podcast. The podcast that is brought to you by Big Tobacco. Because yes, this is a fitness podcast, and what better way to train your lungs than to fill them with tar and have them turn black, and then have to train with tar-filled lungs. I think that's like wearing one of those masks that people wear in the gym that make them feel like Bane. So I'm trying to get sponsored by Big Tobacco, maybe Big Pharma. I might even like throw my logo on some fracking sites. And yeah, the world's going to end and I want to get my bag. Now that the trolling is out of the way, I think we should start today's episode. And today is an exciting one because I'm actually shooting the shit with a longtime friend. I have Tyler Woelfle. I always thought his name was Wolf. I've known him for 10 years and he said Woelfle when he got on. But in his defense, it's spelled Woelfle. I just wasn't paying attention for a decade. And that's probably what my report cards all said in elementary and high school too. So some things never change. And you know what? Sometimes they shouldn't. Because this podcast episode was a group. You know what? I'll define it as this: a good-ass time. That's been one of my favorite sayings over the last little while because I think it just encapsulates a lot of things in one 3-sentence jambalaya of just being a good-ass time implies good vibes. And as we said before, this is a big good vibes podcast. It's a big vibes podcast all around. I did introduce Tyler to that concept during this episode, so be aware for that. I think we also said we were a big steroids podcast. I mean, we're not, but we are. We're just a big dynamic identities podcast. I got to stop also saying we. It's just me, but I like to say we. I mean, if any of my clients listen to this, they're probably traumatized by this because we'll be training and they will be doing a set of squats. And I'm like, all right, we got 3 more. And they're like, who's we, dude? You're literally just standing there. And I'm like, but we're in this together. And I hope to one day use this same language if I ever have a child and my future wife is giving birth to our child. I'll say, we're going through it. I'll be in the delivery room talking about how we're going through such a hard day and how much pain we're experiencing. And I think that's fair. I can't give you an argument to why, but I think I'll also just die on the hill of I've always spoke this way. So I'm kind of setting the gaslight cookie crumbles as to why I'll be able to champion the pain that my future wife goes through. So with that all out of the way, I don't know what this rant is about. Let's intro my boy Tyler. We're going to be talking about, I really honestly wanted to talk to him about his history of training. And I had a good episode. Good name for the episode is going to be Training Like a Weirdo for a Decade. And then we got to one question because honestly, when you're having a good ass time, you don't ask another question. That could be an absolute vibes killer. And we kill no vibes here. We just cultivate them. So it'll be just a nice conversation. I'm going to talk to him about his experience in 10 years in the fitness industry, some of the things he went through. He's changed his approach multiple times. And when Tyler goes in on something, he goes in on it. And right now, as a fellow meathead, I love to see him back in his element of being a meathead as well. And that's exactly where he's at. He's an absolute unit. He had a couple Instagram posts of training. They were called Training Arms Like an Idiot that I was laughing so hard at, where he tried to basically hit 1 rep maxes of bicep curls. And it was my kind of vibe. I was having a good time watching those videos. He's also a great coach. Him and I did one of our first courses together ever as trainers about 9 years ago in Toronto. He's from a city close to London where I grew up, and we actually met there. And then we did further classes with this institute together. So we spent a good amount of time there. And then we've just kind of always crossed paths. Whenever he's come to Toronto, we tried to connect. It's been a really good time. And it was just good to connect with him and talk shop and have a good time and give you guys hopefully give you guys a good listen. And I think there'll be a lot of takeaways in this episode as well. Today, I'm actually not going to do roses and thorns, mainly because I just did them like on Saturday and I'm recording this on Tuesday. So it would feel a bit performative to just throw more roses and thorns at the table. But I guess this is kind of a rose. My 30th birthday is coming up in about 2 weeks from when this will drop, actually 2 weeks. And anyone who knows me knows that my last birthday was probably the worst birthday of my entire life, and it was coming off one of the worst years of my life. And all right, I guess this is a rose now that I'm saying it out loud. I'm just probably not going to share a thorn today. And the last year, like before my 29th birthday, was by far the worst birthday of my life, and the year before that was the worst year of my life. And now with my 30th birthday coming up, my life looks drastically different, and I'm so fucking grateful for that. Like, this has been one of the best years of my life, even though if you know me personally, you know it's been one of the most turbulent, going through a ton of shit. Some big stuff too, but I've gotten to know myself better than I ever have, and I've developed stronger connections with the people that matter to me more than I ever have in my entire life. And that's with extended family, that's with close family, that's with close friends, and that's with new friends. And it's somewhere I didn't think was possible a year ago. So I've just been reflecting lately and realizing that how much can change in a year. And it never feels like it's changing in a day, but once time passes, you can really transform your state and transform where you are. And each day doesn't feel like it, but after 365 of them, you can look back and think, Jesus, my life is in a massively different place than where it was. That transcends fitness. Obviously, it's applicable to fitness, but it's kind of applicable to a lot of places too. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's all about the hard work. Obviously, you have to be consistent and show up and etc. But honestly, one of my biggest takeaways is how goddamn important having good people in your life is. I couldn't have got where I am today from a year ago without the most important people to me in my life. You all know who you are. And that's what I've been so grateful for. And that's just the biggest rose. That's an absolute rose garden. So we're not doing roses and thorns today. We're doing fucking roses and rose gardens. And I got a big garden that feels full after the last year of my life. And I'm just really grateful for that. And yeah, that's where I'm going to leave that. We're going to get in today's episode. But before that, I will make sure to advertise my business because Big Tobacco does not pay me yet. Neither does Big Pharma. So I do need to keep the lights on in my place. And the way that I do that is by helping y'all with your fitness goals. So if you are looking for support with your fitness goals, I do offer online coaching. You can check out what that looks like in the link in the show notes of this episode. It'll give you a rundown of what you can expect. Honestly, if you're looking to develop some more confidence and strength in the gym, you want some programming, you want some nutrition guidance, you're not looking to center your whole fitness routine around how you look and losing weight, etc., but you want to get more knowledgeable, you want to build confidence, and you want to reach some fitness goals in the gym, I'm definitely your guy, or at least one of them. And you can check out what I offer in the show notes of this episode, and we'll go from there. So now, without any further ado, welcome my boy T. Woelfle, otherwise known as Tyler Woelfle, until he corrected me so in this episode, and I think you're having a good one. You're going to have a good time with this one. So give a listen and let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the other side. What's going on, Ty? How you doing today?
I'm good, man. Just finished training and ready to rock. How you doing?
What'd you train today? I know you're always training something weird.
Yeah, I what did I do? Today I built up to 1 rep max in the landmine clean and jerk.
That's so
Um
random. You just built up
yes,
to that?
I started this the other week. My buddy was big into it, and there's this like landmine university or something like that.
Mm.
And anyways, he trained with a bunch of the guys that were doing that. So he was showing me it, and like I do weightlifting, and it's to me it's like the perfect thing to pair it with because all the rules that apply with weightlifting with like bar path and timing of like how to coordinate yourself under the bar are the exact same rules, but the only difference with the landmine is the plane of motion changes.
True.
So
Yeah.
like you're just going from like kind of more sagittal to frontal. So I think it's a really nice thing to pair. My obliques and my lats get really lit up, and it's just fun. So yeah, built up to a 1 rep max in the clean and jerk snatch on that, and then did some bent presses, built up to a 3 rep max on the muscle snatch.
It was a
And
heavy day. It was a bad day to be a heavyweight, eh?
it was a bad day to
It
be.
was a bad day to be a heavyweight.
Yeah,
Jesus.
exactly. And then afterwards, because I'm well rounded, I did a 3K row. I've been on
Oh,
a
like on the rowing machine.
yeah, I've been on a conditioning block right now.
It's an
Trying to
unhinged workout, and I love that.
Yeah, dude, like Mondays and Fridays right now I'm doing like a vert program. So I'm your boy's trying to dunk this summer.
Yep.
And
Who
then
said white boys can't jump?
well, I can't.
Yeah, I
And
know.
so I mean
Oh, you're
I'm gonna,
trying to.
I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and prove them wrong.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. This will be one big step for humanity.
Yeah, exactly. The world will know if this guy dunks. The world will know. So yeah, so anyways, I'm doing some vert stuff on Monday and Friday, and then Tuesdays, Thursdays I sprint. Wednesdays kind of just a play day. So today was
That's actually kind of perfect because I was thinking of a title for this episode, which how this episode goes might change that, but I kept
right.
coming back to the tagline like training like a weirdo for a decade, which
Yeah.
kind of I've known you for about 10 years now,
Yeah.
and that's kind of you in a nutshell from training because you'll hit everything and
Hmm.
you'll hit everything in strange ways. So I wanted to talk about that because you're remarkably consistent for someone who changes the direction of your training quite a bit. And we'll talk about that. But first, you and I know each other, but anyone listening that follows me and listens to my podcast might not know you, and anyone who's going to be listening from your side might not know me. So we've known each other for like 10 years because we started in the industry together at Good Life, but at different Good Lives in the same area, which is crazy to think about how long ago that was.
So sick.
We did a course together and then kind of remained friends. And it's kind of wild that we're still friendly and like chat today. But I wanted to introduce kind of the audience to you and hear some of your backstory so they can get some more context as to where you're coming at this from, how you started, and how you got into the game. So give us a little rundown of how you got into fitness, kind of what your story is, and then we'll build from there.
Yeah, well, first of all, my name's Ty Woelfle. I started, honestly, the story is like it's the same every time. I was in grade 11. I got called down to the office by my guidance counselor. She asked me, "What do you want to be when you're older?" And I literally looked at her and said, "I don't know what I'm doing when I go home from school." Like I was I was like, "Do my friends have answers for this?" I was actually blown away by the question. I couldn't believe my friends were answering this question. So anyway, she's like, I stumble through and try and like pick something to apply for, end up going with firefighting because I'm kind of fit and like, sure, whatever, I guess I'll be a firefighter. Went to the school to I got accepted at one of them, declined at another. So I went to the one, did the tour, came back in the truck and looked at my parents and were just like, yo, I'm not doing that. Like
Really?
I'm gonna
You did the
waste
tour and
all
said
your
no.
money. Yeah, man. I just saw the dorm rooms and I saw the people running through. I was like, oh, my mom and dad had some money set like saved up for me for school. And I was like, guys, like, no, I'm not doing that. I am going to waste it all. Like I was partying and like I was being a grade 12 kid, you know? So
Yeah.
anyway, so I said no, because I didn't really care about firefighting. I just picked it because I thought like, whatever. And so my mom told me like she's like, you can't you can do that, but you got to have a plan. You can't just be a bum in my basement. And I was
Fair.
like, well, that's easy because I can't sit still. So I was training 5 days a week since grade 10. So for 2 years, like super consistent at the gym. And then I thought to myself, like, oh damn, well, what if I just go do a co-op at the gym? So I did the co-op, and then I ended up working the front desk. I think I was probably like the worst employee they ever had. I just like flirted with the girls and barely did anything, but just chatted people up, and it was an amazing job. But anyways,
Always
and
been
then
big dog, eh?
yeah, I was like 18. No, it was just like it was great. Like it
Yeah.
was great. It was great.
Getting paid to spit game. That's the dream.
Yeah, man. I was like I was a DJ because I got to work the music. Like
You're hitting douchebag bingo right now. Hitting on girls,
exactly.
lifting weights, being a DJ. Let's
The only thing
go.
I didn't have was the headphones. Like I didn't have the headphones. I had a shirt on. That was the only unfortunate part. But yeah, so anyways, doing all this, and then the guy that taught me everything, like he got me introduced to Poliquin. I remember in like grade 11, I came to him with a Men's Health magazine and he like took it
Mm.
out of my hand and threw it in the garbage. Like he was just like, he
Hell
was like,
yeah.
he's like, this is trash. He's like, and I just read Poliquin, dude. Like I didn't read a book in high school and I read he had 42 articles on T Nation,
Yeah.
Testosterone Nation. I read every single one of them. I was just like, oh my God, like it opened my world, the fact that there was so much more to training than just like what I was seeing at the gym. And then I started training with Poliquin methods and I'm like, I'm 18. I basically got like free drugs running through my body.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm putting on like, I'm putting on size, I'm putting on weight, I'm like lifting more than these guys who have been there for like 2 decades. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I didn't feel like I was training harder. I felt like I was training harder before. But like, you're just
Yeah.
drop setting everything and you're like, and then I'm doing these Poliquin workouts like 4x6 with a 4 second eccentric, four exercises in a workout.
Mm.
Like, okay,
Yes.
and then 6 weeks go by and I'm like, my bench is up 50 pounds. And I'm like, I was benching 3 plates when I was like 18. And I'm just like,
But you benched 3 plates when you were 18.
yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want some of those free drugs that were in your body too. That's gnarly.
Yeah, they were literally free drugs. It was like testosterone, I
Hell
was
yeah.
just like
I support universal health care. So free drugs in your body, free
free
drugs
drugs in my
from the
body.
hospitals, free drugs.
Free drugs for
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah. Dude, it was crazy. And I'm just seeing all these results. And then that guy who showed me Poliquin and got me into everything, that he got hired as the fitness manager, and he's like, well, of course I'm going to hire this dumbass kid at the front because I've literally taught him everything that he knows.
Yeah.
So he hired me, and dude, like I just remember thinking, like as soon as I started learning like the Poliquin stuff, like at that young of an age, and got exposed to like like whatever people think about Poliquin doesn't matter, like an intelligent training system, like
A hundred percent.
one that's not just like a meathead, like go drop set everything until you know, like it just clicked. I was like, holy shit, man. Like I'm in a gym, and when I look around in my gym where there's like, maybe 2,000 members, nobody knows what they're doing. Like
Yeah.
everybody's just doing a bunch of random shit. And that was the moment where I was just like, oh, like this isn't going to be a job for me. This is going to be like my whole life. And then dude, I went from literally not reading a book in high school to consuming knowledge everywhere I could find it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that just set up the next, I'm on year 13 of just like, we'll get to it, like a million different turns and a million different paths, and like just expose myself to shit I never thought ever in a million years I'd be trying or doing.
Yeah. Because I've known you for that for about 10 years. And hearing that you hadn't read a book in 4 years is very strange for me to even imagine. From how I've known you, that pursuit of knowledge has transcended fitness. You're a naturally curious guy, and however I've interacted with you, that's how I would describe you, as someone who's always wanting to learn, always learning something new. I'm actually pretty similar in that regard, and I think what's both interesting there is that you didn't go to college.
No.
Yeah, neither did I. And what I think, obviously, I think higher education is very important, and going to university or college, if you can find something that's useful to you, is very important. But to your point, at the beginning of this story that you shared, there was an opportunity for you to kind of force you going to school for the sake of going to school because you just kind of have to. And I do notice that that tends to destroy a lot of folks' desire for knowledge because it almost becomes a job. And that starts to just wither away that natural curiosity I think all humans have in something. And you and I are both examples of not going to school, but then doing something, and they just happen to be in the same field of fitness and whatever. But it's for me transcended in a way that I'm always reading and trying to learn stuff that has nothing to do with fitness too.
Yeah.
Like one thing that I'm always reading about is history. But in school, I didn't give a shit about it. You couldn't catch me reading a book because it was forced down in a way that for some people, that type of learning is effective, but sometimes it's also not. And for the people that it's not, they're kind of left behind and often labeled as like unintelligent, lazy, et cetera, et cetera. But the style of learning just might be completely non conducive. And you
Right.
could have been that if you didn't find something that reignited that natural curiosity. And now I know you to be someone who's always trying to learn something.
Yeah, big time. Big time. Always trying to learn something new. And I find now that like I don't know if you ever read the book The Archer. Like I can
No.
never say his last name, but Paul something, he wrote The Alchemist. Like he's got these like really
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah. I know of the author. I've never read The Archer.
right. So like the TLDR of The Archer is basically like how you can find like life's greatest secrets in any task. And
Mm,
like there's like certain principles that are just effective when you apply them to, doesn't matter what you apply them
mm.
to. And like that's what I've found through, like pursuing this whole, it started as fitness and then it's turned into a million different things. And it's like that's what I've found and been so I get so excited about, is like, oh, like I can take these same principles of like how to be successful in one thing. And then when I learn something new, I just apply the same principles. Like it's different context, but it's similar
Yeah.
principles. Like I posted something on my Instagram story the other day. Like you said you're into history. Like one thing I really like is like finances and investing. Like I really love it. And it's the same stuff. It's like I I made the comparison between, like selecting, if you're a value investor, you select a few businesses that are just like they move up slowly. And like that's synonymous to like selecting a few exercises and just expecting like 1%, half a percent of
Yeah,
improvement each workout for 30 years, 40 years. Like,
100%. Yeah.
so like there's a lot, and that's just one of a bunch, but there's like a lot of these comparisons that you can find in anything. And I think like if you pursue one thing long enough, you really start to learn that it's like it's more about like characteristics and behaviors and habits and things more so about the information and like the knowledge and how much like how good you are at like reciting something that you read, which like I'm not really not that good at. Like I have to put things into use right away. And that's why I loved training and studying, because I got to go take this like weekend course, like really get, in the books and writing notes and studying. But then I got to go home Monday and like apply it right away.
Yeah, you have
And
to
it's
apply
like,
it.
oh,
That
I
I
just
I,
like,
I describe that as like that's when you really download it into your nervous system and
yeah,
remember it. Because you
yeah,
can all the theory and everything can hang out in your head for a long time until you actually play around with it. And more importantly, make the mistakes with playing around with it. Because I do think that it's very common to fear making mistakes when
right,
learning anything. And what I've also noticed, and I've also actually read some research on this with exercise science, in that making mistakes is also very important in coaching because you do also learn what not to do. You have to
right.
learn what to do, but that can be quite vague. You can also kind of narrow down what to do by learning what also not to do and what that feels like when you're doing it, quote unquote, the wrong way. And I don't know if you've done this with clients. I'll say like some classics like rounding your back out with deadlifting, etc. Sometimes with a light enough weight, I'll be like, round the hell out of your back. See
Right.
what that feels like. Because if you find yourself in that position with this deadlift, that's a good physical cue. Oh, I'm rounding out again.
Right.
Right. Or I'll have them lean into what I don't want them to do so they can have an idea of what it feels like to do that. And then when they're there, the words probably don't like reignite like, oh, I gotta brace this, but the feeling will be there, and that's going to be associated with, oh shit, I'm in this position again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And I actually think like I think we learn more from our like fuck ups and failures than we do from the things that we like study or we just have like in our head. I think we more learn more like that. Like we remember strong emotion. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like we that stuff stays with us. So it's like, and even for not even from just from a coaching standpoint, like but from the client's standpoint, like I ask them like, what do you do? And maybe I get a client who's like plays drums, and I'm like, you're getting frustrated about like not being able to figure this out, and we've been working together for 3 weeks. I'm like, if I came and like played drums, like, and I didn't figure it out in 3 weeks, would you like talk down at me? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, well, it's like this. So I don't know. It's just, I just love the pursuit of not knowing things, figuring it out, sucking. Like I really have embraced sucking, as cheesy and as corny as that is, but like we can
embrace the
talk about
suck. Yeah, yeah.
I have embraced it so much. Like I will intentionally put myself into scenarios that I'm not good at or I suck at, and I'll just like I just like I don't know. I really work hard. I laugh. Like I find like I'll use laughter as a way to kind of like surpass like overcome the feeling of awkwardness or I suck or whatever. Me and my friend actually, a good buddy of mine, we used to always say this thing, and it sounds like self-deprecating, but it's not. Like I would always say to him, I'm just an idiot. Like
Yeah, yeah. No,
I'm
I
just an idiot.
actually, that can read in different contexts, but I
Yeah.
think I know where you're going with it. So
Yeah, to me, for
continue.
me and him, it was a positive thing. Like, it's not like I'm talking down on myself. It's just like, dude, if you just think about it, we all are trying to like, even like the experts and stuff, like we're all to some capacity, especially when we start, like if we have a business or we're a leader or we have authority or we're whatever, like we all are really trying to like pretend that we really know a lot of stuff. And sometimes we do, but we also we want to save face because we don't want people to think that we don't know. People that are, if a person pays you, and every answer you're just like, oh, I don't really know the answer. You know what I mean? It's not very confident. You're not giving them much confidence. But like the truth is like if you dig deep enough and press me enough about any question, I'm gonna end up being like, yeah, I actually don't really know like what I'm talking about to the degree that I like think I
Yeah.
do,
No, I totally
And
get
that's
that.
just
Like,
the reality, like with everything.
so that may remind me, like, it ties in with the joke you say of like, I'm just an idiot. And I think for a lot of people, that might, to your point, read as self-deprecating, but I also interpret it as being very liberating because one of the things for myself as being afraid, because we have things that we attach our identity to. And so the last podcast I just did was on body neutrality. And with the woman that I spoke with, one of the things that she was talking about and that resonated with me is that we think about body positivity and neutrality as we tend to think of it only affecting people who have what we would call like socially stigmatized bodies. So they're not lean, they might be out of shape, etc. And we think of like they need body neutrality and body positivity, etc. And that's true, right? Especially because politically in our environment, they're going to be the ones who are stigmatized the most and suffer the most from public judgment of how bodies should look.
Right.
But also, what Shannon had said to me that I was just it was on my mind, but I couldn't quite put words to it. Is it also impacts people who fit into the category of having this socially ideal body because they'll attach their identity and self worth to that body. And while it's working now, right? They have to maintain everything to keep that body because without that body, they lose their identity. It's a part of their identity to be hot or to be jacked or to be X, Y, or Z. When they lose that, they don't know who they are. And the same thing can go for some people in their identity, especially if they excelled through their whole life. In their identity, is there someone who's exceptional?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, especially if they've been exceptional at their craft. So they're very successful. They've hit all the marks. When they do their job, they know exactly what they're doing. They have this level of confidence. The idea of putting yourself in a position where, wow, I'm just an idiot now
Yeah.
is actually threatening to their sense of identity if they haven't explored that they identify with being great,
Right.
right? As opposed to identify with pursuing greatness and acknowledging that in the pursuit of greatness, I'm going to suck at the start. Because again, I'm just an idiot. I don't know
Yeah.
what I don't know, especially in something that I'm not into. And with someone like you, this segues very well into some of the questions I want to ask is you have taken that phrase and you've kind of run wild with it because you've explored so many different things and got good at them at least, or at least achieved goals in those areas where you're like, you talked on the phone the other day, you mentioned like you had gone bobsledding. And I want to ask you about that for sure. But you're like,
Mhm.
you had never done that before. And you're like, well, I'm just an idiot. Let's have some fun. And I assume by the end of it, you learned a lot, right? But at the start, you're like, I actually have no idea. And you probably didn't even know what you were getting yourself into.
It is like what you said about being liberating. It really is. Like when I laugh at myself and say like, well, I'm just an idiot. Like I'm just here being an idiot.
Yeah.
Like to me, it's like I get to be silly. I get to have fun. I get to like lighten up. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to be the strongest guy in the room. I don't have to be
Yes.
the fastest guy in the room. I don't have to be the most jacked guy in the room. I don't have to be that because like to me, there might have been a time where when I was in high school, I was the strongest guy or one of the biggest guys. And like, you ride that wave when you're that young. But like, dude, now I'm in a gym training with guys that go to the Olympics. I'm training with professional
Yeah.
athletes. Like, I can't fake it, man. Like, I am not the fastest. I cannot jump the highest. I am not lifting the most amount of weight. And it's just like, that's good because it's like, it puts it in my face that it's like, dude, that's not your superpower, man. Like, there's something more that's not going to be something that ends one day that you can use to give value to people. I actually asked myself this question quite young. I was like 21. It was while we were taking the courses, like the holistic lifestyle coaching courses together. And like I went from being like partying, drinking absurd amounts of Captain Morgan every weekend, like doing, recreational drugs, like just living like a 19-year-old kid. And I went from that to like eating organic food, volunteering on organic farms, meditating all the time, grew a beard out, like whatever. And what's really started all that, other than the courses I was taking, the stuff I was getting exposed to, but like, well, first of all, one thing that started was I got a DUI when I was 18, so that was kind of like a wake up call.
Yeah.
And then all these courses were just like, oh, dude, like you can take this stuff seriously and like lead a different path. Like you don't have to, be in this mold that you don't even know why you're really doing it. And anyways, I was at Good Life the one day and I just finished a workout and I remember I was in the change room and I had my shirt off and I was like looking in the mirror and I was just like, I when I first looked in the mirror, I was like, obviously, just like I was just checking myself out. And then I thought to myself, I don't know where this thought came from, but I thought to myself, I was like, yo, if all my muscle went away, like in the snap of a finger, who would I be?
How old
Like,
are
I was
you?
like, oh, dude, I was like 19. I was like,
That's an amazing question to explore at that age.
I
Wow.
don't know where it came from. I don't know where it came from. I'll never forget it. I know exactly where I was. I remember it. And I asked myself, I was like, who am I if all this muscle disappears? And then obviously the next answer was like, oh shit, I don't know. I was like, would I be as confident? Would I like, would I walk around the way I do? Would I like have the presence that I feel I have? Like, I was like, no, I wouldn't. So then what I did was I decided I was gonna experiment with being a vegetarian.
Mm.
So I went vegetarian and for a bit, and I went from like I was 206 when I was 18 and I went down to like 168. And dude, I actually have
What?
yeah, bro. So I actually have a photo of me somewhere on my computer, and it's at your place. Like, I don't know if you remember, I came down to Toronto a while ago and I stayed at your apartment. I don't know if I stayed there for a
Was
night
that
or
that one?
whatever.
Oh, we went and ate Ethiopian food.
This was like way like
Yeah, I remember. We went to that
okay.
Ethiopian spot where it's like the teff flour. There's no cutlery. It was delicious.
That would have
'Cause,
made
yeah,
sense
I
because I
remember
was
we
in the
got the
Ethiopian.
vegetarian dish, and I
Yeah,
was a bit like, huh, I'm surprised Ty is getting the vegetarian dish.
right. I was
I,
down to 168, man. I
bro,
was down
we
to 168.
we were I actually have a funny story with that. We were so young. Like I had been in Toronto for because I was when I was living with two colleagues at Equinox at
Yeah, that's
the
it.
ice condos, which if you know Toronto, those are the shiestiest condos in the city, right beside the ACC or the Scotiabank Arena. Classic Airbnb spot. And I was living there on like the 47th floor. And I thought I was the fucking man. Like I had the shiestiest little view from my apartment, but I could see into the Rogers Center.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I fucking made it. Like
Right
I
on, dude.
run this city. Like I was such a little douchebag. And I was in this weird spot where I was getting into Equinox and I was doing really well there. And I was getting swept up in all of like the bullshit. And I remember you came down and we went walking around. We went and grabbed dinner. We chatted. You stayed over, and I woke up in the morning, and we must have been 24, probably, yeah, 23, 24. And I remember you were like journaling at like 7 a.m. when I
Yes.
woke up. And I'm like, who the
100%.
fuck is this dude on my couch? He's on vacation technically, journaling, and I'm like, this guy's built different. What is happening right now? And like you were living that for real, and you had some like wild spiritual books, like you have brought your own things. And as someone who's said I was going to do that, like I'm the type of guy historically who will bring a book on a long bus ride and be like, I'll bring two books. 'Cause I'm like, I'm obviously going to finish this whole book and the next, and then spend the whole time on my phone and not even touch the book, and then feel horrible about not reading the book. So I understand packing it. I understand packing the journal, but
Right.
then to see, I'm like, yo, this guy's committed to this work. Like you were doing it at a young age. And what I will say is like externally, being like being a dude, a young dude, you're not encouraged to behave like that. If you're actually you're swimming against the current to do that. The easy
Right.
thing to do is be like, we could have got drunk that night, talked about it would have been fun, right? I wouldn't have regretted that either. But we could have gone with the current, and you've always been someone who swam against it. So I know you're not talking shit when you say all these things that you're doing because I've witnessed it for so long.
Yeah, man. And like I really was like I was like frat boy at the end of high school. Like that was my persona. You know what I mean? Like that was it. All I cared about was filling out my medium Hollister shirts, going to parties,
But
being
oh,
reckless.
medium Hollister shirts, man, I miss those.
Yeah, bro, they were
Dude, those
so
are sick.
small and you just
So
felt
tight on the
so
arms.
jacked. Like you
Oh,
get a new one and you just felt so jacked.
yeah.
And that's all I
At
cared
one
about.
point, at one point I was wearing smalls.
Oh,
Dude,
that's risky.
oh man, I
Still no
remember grade 9, dude. This is like my one of my best friends, Cam.
Hollister. Are they still
Dude,
around?
I think they are because I in the Eaton Center in Toronto, I've seen it sometimes, but
I'm
they've
gonna go
changed
check. Sure.
their style. But I remember grade 9, I had jacked arms because I all I did was pull ups, and I was like really thin with jacked arms, and I was wearing a small Hollister polo, and
Let's
I
go.
remember I'm feeling myself, and this guy's still my best friend to this day. I walk into geography class, and my one of my best friends looks at me, he goes, dude, did you paint that shirt on? And I remember going so red because I'm like, yo, shut up, dude. Like, I'm trying to look sick. Like, I obviously look jacked in this, but really, it was kind of embarrassing how much of a tryhard I was being. But
Right.
yeah, Hollister, what a throwback.
That's good, man. So like, yeah, dude, like that was what I cared about. And then I completely shifted to the other end of the spectrum. Like I was just like,
Like
okay, I'm
Abercrombie?
no, no, like a beard and no shoes and
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like whatever, like what you seen on the couch that day. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna get out of the spotlight completely. I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna wear baggy clothes. I'm gonna get a big beard. I'm gonna grow my hair. Like I'm gonna stay in. I'm gonna smoke weed. I'm gonna like I just went completely that way, and I really was that way for a while, dude. Like 7 years, man. Like 7 years.
What was your training like
Years.
then?
My training then, I was doing a lot of meditation. I was doing a lot of Tai Chi. I was doing in terms of training, like, dude, I was messing around with like a lot of Swiss ball stuff, cable stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I think what happened, I'm trying to remember the timeline. I think what happened was I actually was mountain biking and I wrecked my knee, like really, like real good. And then I did. That's when it happened. So I wrecked my knee and then I was kind of like limited with what I could do with training in terms of like whatever, running, squatting, all this stuff. So I just had to get super creative. So I was just like doing all like the check stuff, like all the Swiss ball stuff, the
Yeah,
cable
yeah.
stuff, like a lot of that. I was just getting into that. So I wasn't a lot of gymnastics and like maybe a little bit of calisthenics, like just stuff like that. And it was just I was really living that life. And looking back, it's funny hearing you say about how like how like you saw me on that couch because like I I now I can look back and be like, oh yeah, that was like totally different thing than what my friends were doing or what you know what I mean or what like it's like I'm air quoting like normal. But dude, like then I didn't see that. I didn't even think about it. I was just so focused. Like I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm learning things right now that are changing my life. Like
Mm.
not an exaggeration, not like a figure of speech, like literally changing my life. I feel so healthy. I feel so good. I'm realizing how powerful my mind is and the thoughts I think and like how I would like, dude, I would be journaling and like write something down and then meditate and like think about it in my head and then it would happen like 3 hours later. And I would just
Like
be
what?
like, what the fuck? Like, dude, just crazy stuff. Like, well, I gotta think. This is like a
Like she would slide into your DMs?
yeah, like seriously, like sometimes it was girls, sometimes it was girls, sometimes dead ass. Sometimes it was girls, sometimes it was money, sometimes it was like answers. Like I remember this. I remember I had this like epiphany. I was like, what if, what if everything is like the macro, so like the universe, the biggest thing ever, is actually just like a huge expansion of the smallest thing ever.
Mm.
And like then I was like reading, I don't know, I read this, I don't know, it was like the holographic universe or some book about like quantum physics, and I was like understood nothing. And it just I mean, like I just
I love when I get into something and I'm like, dude, I could totally read
oh,
the
I'm so
dude.
dumb. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
such an
yeah,
idiot.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm reading this book and it just it's like yeah, like the atom is like almost 99.99999% empty space and like space might be like that too and like all these different things, dude. Like I have to really like sit down and think about it. But like some of these epiphanies that I would have would get like answered. Or if I had a question about like uh, you know, a mobility question or an anatomical question, or if I had something that I was confused about with my training, like I would get an answer in a book that I was reading like
Mm.
3 hours later or something. And dude, this happened enough that I was just, I would like laugh to myself and be like, dude, I would be like, I can control the future. And it sounds so silly. It sounds so silly, but like, I
How did
really
you grift this into starting a cult and making a ton of money off of it?
dude, yeah, man, like a cult might come, you know, like me and my buddy joke, me and my buddy joke about starting a cult all the time. We think that'd be awesome,
You
you know.
like you're charismatic enough that you could, and like you believe, and like you believe in it. I'm assessing this. You believe in good things, but
Definitely
you believe in yourself
right,
enough that like the skeleton of what could be an awesome cult leader
Right.
is there.
Oh,
You're not.
I'd be such a good cult leader.
Oh
Like I
yeah,
wouldn't be a
yeah,
bad cult leader.
yeah.
It would be a nice cult. It would be a
Oh,
cult.
it would be a good. Oh, you're saying the cult would be good, not that you would be an effective cult leader.
Well, I don't know. We'd have
Yeah,
to. I'm just an idiot. I don't know. But like the
fair, fair.
cult would
I
be
think I'd
great.
be a good dictator. Like all the other ones are bad, but
You think
I would be the first good one. I would actually trailblaze the market of being the first great dictator.
Dude, you should. We should do that together. Like you can take your market out over in the six, and I'll be out here in Ottawa, and we'll do this up. Yeah, no, I don't know. Me and my buddy joke about the cult thing all the time. It's a joke, but like I don't know.
But it's not.
It's not really. Like I think about it, dude, it's just fun. Like it's just fun. I think like there's this like there's this mold that's so silly that people get stuck into. And I didn't like, I mean, I just had a conversation with my buddy the other day about how I'm like, why do I never fear trying something new or like never fear like or if I think of a big goal, I'm like, yeah, I can fucking do that. Like I can do that for sure. Like I
Dude,
can.
yo, I remember when we did check, I think it was we did check, we had to talk about our goals. And as someone who's always been more, I actually admired this about you at the time because as someone who's always been afraid to put my needs out there, I think for the embarrassment of like, if I say it out loud and then it doesn't happen, it almost feels extra embarrassing. And that's something I have to work through because that can get in the way of you just living your life.
Right.
As where if you said something out loud, you're like, I'm going to do that and you didn't do it, you'd be like, oh shit, I guess it didn't happen. But I put in the work. I remember you said 2024 or 2020 I'm the Olympics for Olympic weightlifting. And you
Drives me.
said it with 10 toes bolted to the ground, base in your chest. And I remember being like, I'm not that confident in anything. Like, I wouldn't, if I had my lunch packed, like, say my lunch was chicken and rice, I wouldn't say, I'm eating chicken and rice for lunch with that much confidence. At 11:30 a.m., I wouldn't say that with that much confidence. And I was like, damn. And you didn't make the Olympics, but I do know you trained your ass off in a way that if you were ever going to, you would have. So it's not like you left things on the table. You did train in a way that would, and you believed in it. I do think that, I think as someone who's not the most spiritual person, I do believe in that in a spiritual sense of like, that will change your behavior and that behavior can manipulate outcomes, not like you have like actual external control over the world, but you do. That belief in yourself is so infectious that it can in a weird way transcend just you doing something, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And I don't, a lot of people take this spiritually definitely the context that I just explained that in, like what I was doing and the person I was, like you'd think like, oh yeah, it's kind of like granola, but I really, I forgot I told you that, but as soon as you said that, I now I remember thinking that because I started Olympic weightlifting when I was 18 or 19, and then I hurt my knee, and then I just like stopped because I couldn't do it. And but I remember like, yeah, thinking that. And another thing is I remember always watching these videos of these college kids and like they're in the weight room and everybody's like
Oh,
screaming and like dudes are in the squat rack and just go. And I was like, oh my God, like I need to be a professional athlete so I can do that. I don't even care about playing the game. Like I need to do that. I need to be in a weight room with a bunch of dudes and be screaming my head off while I'm like lifting something I've never lifted before. And like, dude, that dream was alive, like in the forefront of my mind, like when I had that much confidence about being able to say it for like a second, dude. Like a second, in time, like it was a second. And but that's what I mean is for me, that's like I joke about controlling the future or whatever, but like it's not spiritual. Like I truly believe, even like we might not have it figured out yet. I've read books where like Joe Dispenza talks about how you can like, you think a certain thing, you can like, I don't know if manifest it the right word is because you're building these proteins in your brain and blah, blah, blah. I don't know how he explains it, but like he kind of uses science to prove that this is a true thing. But I don't even care about trying to prove it with smart words. The thing for me is like, if I am honest with myself and I look back on my life, like even those goals that I sidelined, I still kept them there. And they're just like, they're not at the forefront of my attention. What is at the forefront of my attention is just continual focus on doing a little bit better with whatever it is that I'm doing.
mm.
And it's like, dude, these things don't leave. Like they're there, and they're like super far targets. But like so many things have happened in my life that where I just end up in a room, like I'm at this gym in Ottawa, Can-Am, and I'm like, bro, every Saturday I am screaming at the top of my lungs, training with
Mm,
everybody, hyping everybody up. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I never like this is that moment for me that I didn't even know I was chasing. Or like I'm like I said before, I'm training with people in the Olympics. I I get to train alongside a national, like multiple national level weightlifters. I like professional athletes everywhere. I'm just like, what the hell, man? Like, how,
mm.
pinch me.
No,
So
I,
it's
I
like
actually,
it came true, but I didn't even mean for it to come true. It's just like I truly believe that I had that in my head at one point, and I indirectly achieved it by just okay, cool, whatever. Put it on ice, and just keep focusing on whatever it is that day. And I think that's a reality for everybody. And
mm,
but you can't do that if you accept that life is just the typical mold that you see.
that's true.
And,
Yeah,
you
there's
know,
something you said that is interesting because I think you and I think differently here, but it's good that we do because what you said there is that you are experiencing that goal, right? But I actually think that's a very healthy and adaptive way to be flexible with the uncontrollable, which is kind of how specifically life will unfold. But you were chasing something there. And I think sometimes we have this fantasy of what that will look like. And if you're rigid with what that fantasy looks like, and you look at that fantasy in a vacuum, as opposed to deconstructing what that fantasy is into like what you actually want, right? And being flexible, what that can look like. In the rigid model, it would be like I have to actually be an Olympic athlete and be training with Olympians as an Olympic athlete where they're slapping my back and I'm hitting a PR in front of everyone. And that's
right,
like the rigid way to look at it. And I think that's a maladaptive way to look at how we pursue goals because it almost never looks like that, regardless of the goal, right? An analogy would be you think of the white picket fence. People want to have people be married with kids in the white picket fence. But really, what they're looking for is family. And
right,
family looks, the way that family looks is incredibly diverse. You can be married, you cannot. You can have kids, you cannot have kids. You can have a private house, you can live in a compound. There's so many ways you can do it, but the underlying thing you're desiring there is a sense of family. But if you're rigid, you could have that sense of family, but not have the white picket fence with two kids and a spouse and be like, I didn't achieve this goal. As we're, what I'm hearing, what you're saying is you could and like the fantasy could be much different in real world how it turns out, but you could look around and be adaptive enough in how you can analyze your life and be like, dude, I'm here. I achieved this goal. I might not have the white picket fence, but I have family. That's always what I wanted. And now you're like, you're not an Olympic athlete, but you are because you didn't give up on that goal and you were flexible on what it looked like. You continuously put yourself in environments where that could come true in some sense and you had gratitude for in the areas that it did come through and you pay more attention to what did come true as opposed to paying attention to how it didn't come true because I think a lot of the times you put someone through the exact same thing you went through and the way they see it is, well, you know what? I am training in this gym with professional athletes and I'm training my ass off and I'm working with Olympic athletes and I'm in this sick gym that I always imagine, but I didn't make that. I'm not in the Olympics. Like my
right.
life's a failure. And the outcome is the exact same. But how you're experiencing that outcome is dramatically different. Like one, I hear it in your voice, facilitates excitement and joy for life as where the other facilitates depression. You're like, dude, I failed. And it facilitates a lack of self efficacy. You don't believe in yourself, as where you've done the exact same thing. And I see more belief in even in yourself, even though you didn't achieve the specific goal, you achieved what you were looking for deeper than what the goal itself actually was, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. And like there's a quote I heard the other day. It's a Jeff Bezos in on Lex Friedman's podcast, and he had a quote that says, "Be stubborn on the vision, but flexible in the details." And I'm like,
Hmm.
that's so crazy. And for me, I have been super happy in like a shoebox of a place, like back streets. Like if you took a photo of where I was, you'd be like, when are you leaving there? You know? And
Yeah.
then I've also been like super sad and depressed in like literally a postcard of a place. Like if I showed you where I was, you'd be like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
100%.
And and I've seen this with, you know, athletes and people who are in that caliber. And you hear this in like if you listen to like music, if you listen to music and you listen to the words that these people are saying, like a lot of it is cry for help. And it's like, it's not the thing. It's not the thing that's going to give you the joy. It's not the gold medal. It's not the money. It's not the fans raving about you. It's not that. It's the feeling that you have inside while you do that. And you can have that feeling being a dad that works a normal job and comes home, and every day when he opens that door, his kids run to him, and it's just
Mm.
like, this is the best, right? Like, or you could, you know, you could have that feeling doing something else, but it's the feeling. And like for me, that's always been the thing that I think about and I meditate on. And I really like, you know, again, air quoting, like try and manifest. Like I think to myself, how do I want to feel when I'm 30? Or like if I think about where I want my business to go, I'm like, instead of thinking of the dollar amount or the, you know, what my office looks like or who my wife is or whatever. Like instead of thinking about that, I'm like, what's the feeling that I want to have? Because the feeling is something I can create right now. I don't know what having $10 million feels like. I don't know. But what I do know is I've felt joy, I've felt happiness, I've felt content. And like I can visualize those things happening and hang on to the feeling, because then by the time I get to the accolade or the thing I thought, I already know that it's not that anyways. So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that a lot of people try and tie like a certain thing or a certain event to like their, you know, them being happy or whatever it is that they think they're chasing. And then they get there and they realize either it didn't bring them the happiness because it was also paired with all this other bullshit. And by the time they got there, they were completely worn out.
Mhm.
Or they realized that like, oh, that lasted for like 12 hours.
Yeah.
And now I'm fucking lost because I don't know what to do from this point. Because, like you said before, all my identity was tied up in, you know, doing this thing. And now I did it. And I wake up the next day and I go, like, oh shit, what now? And that's a real thing. Like
Yeah.
that's a real thing. So people have these long-term goals that they want to get and they get depressed because they never get them. But people also get really depressed by hitting them and then realizing like, fuck, what now?
100%. That's I've had that myself where I actually do remember, and this is before I tried to. This is before honestly, this is before I went to fucking therapy,
Right.
because this is when I was like, dude, I'm about 10 pounds and 10,000 more dollars in my bank, 10 pounds down and 10,000 more dollars in my bank account from being truly happy. And as delusional as it is, I genuinely believed that.
Right.
But that's how superficial my understanding of my own happiness was. And I think this was supposed to be a fitness podcast,
Well, it is. It's fucking mental
but
fitness.
like
Like
I was like,
you gotta know this.
to try to bring that back, the gym can be an ultimate playground for feeding the egocentric drive for happiness, because what's sold to us through the fitness industry is that you are 10 pounds away from being happy. If you sell weight loss and you sell that, which is the almost the easiest way and the fastest way to make money in this industry is by selling like a rapid body transformation. If that came with the acknowledgement that just so you know, you won't be finally happy at that weight, that would be bad for business, right? It would be intellectually honest. It would be very bad for business. And as someone who I lost 60 pounds when I was grade 8, which is gnarly. And I truly thought, I mean, my life will be great when I get to that weight, but it wasn't because I had underlying things that was contributing to like struggling with depression for so long. But the thing was, I always thought that it was all about maintaining how my body looked. And one way, it's a physical thing in which we can attach our happiness to, so we can see results of like, okay, like if I look this way, I'll be happy. But having been there and having lost it and been there and lost it and been there, at both stages, other than the novelty of like when you lose a lot of weight, it does feel good. there's a couple things like materially, if you have been experiencing stigma, that's a separate issue. Like that is a real thing, regardless. Like if you are shamed a lot, if you are bullied, if doctors are just addicted to you, if you go in for actual help and like just lose weight, like there are things that will materially make your life worse in a bigger body. And I'm not going to deny that. But having lost a lot of weight too, after the novelty does wear off, you're like, and you're if you settle into the new problems, like the fact that your problems are still all there, the euphoria of achieving something big goes away, and then you're like stuck with yourself, and you're like, oh, I'm still unhappy. Like that can be very depressing too, and that's happened with people with making a lot of money, et cetera, because you were told that your happiness was at the end of some external achievement. And what's interesting and tied back in this conversation is you analyze that at like 20 years old, which is straight up bonkers. Like for just in an unsolicited fashion as a dude, because you did it while you were kind of winning in an external sense. Because I remember what you looked like. You
I
had the
did it while I
body.
had a sick pump.
Yeah, you did it with a six pack as a handsome, tall guy. Like you did it in the same analogy that someone who was making 500,000, like $1 million a year, and on the come up still, it hadn't settled yet. And you're like, what would I do if I didn't have all this money? Maybe I should work on something else other than doubling down. Because I think the easiest decision in a position you were in is like, I look fucking sick, dude. Let's see how much sicker I can look. Like, let's parlay how I look into a career. And that'd be a lucrative thing to do. But instead, you're like, what would happen if this was gone? I actually am very fascinated that without solicitation, you had that question.
Well, dude, like at that same time period, I had a client and he asked me if I wanted to work in Toronto and to work as a stripper. And
Oh, you totally could have been, eh?
I know.
Magic tie?
Yeah, and I'm gonna be completely transparent with you. They all like I went home and I thought about it because this guy's like, yo, you could make 3 to 5K in a weekend. And like I ran the math and it didn't take long for me to realize like that's a lot more money than I'm making doing this, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like, maybe I could be a stripper. And and I went home and I was like gonna and I asked and I was like, my mom was upstairs and I went upstairs and I was like, I'm like, yo, mom, I gotta tell you something. And she's like, what's up? And I'm like, um, so my client like asked me if I wanted to work in Toronto as a dancer. And
Oh,
she's like, oh
dancer.
yeah, like when?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
classic,
well,
classic
on the week,
euphemism.
yeah, on the weekends. I was like be like you said, I can make like 3 to 5 thousand. And my mom, bro, this woman bit her tongue so hard and just outsmarted me. She's like, well, that is pretty good money. Um, you can do whatever you want, honey. You make your own decisions, but like just think about like what goes into that. Like what comes along with that life and it's not just going to be weekends and like whatever. And like said it just like that. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like thanks, mom."
This is a
And
great mom. This is a great
dude,
mom moment.
but like my mom hates strip clubs. Like hates strip clubs, bro. Um, so looking back, I just know my mom was like, I know my mom was sitting there being like, okay, if I tell this kid no, he's gonna like, there's a good chance he's gonna go do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and then I ended up deciding no, and like, this is a funny joke, but it's also like something that it's quite serious. If God had blessed me with like a gigantic dick, I I probably would have been a stripper, bro. I had this conversation with my mom.
Yeah, let's go.
I know. I
I
had this
did not
conversation with
expect
my
that. That's
mom,
fucking awesome.
and I get in the shower and I'm showering, I'm thinking about it, and I'm just like, fuck, man, my dick's not big enough to be a stripper.
Whoa, I didn't see that coming. That's
So between
unreal.
my mom like giving me the leeway and my dad not giving me a bigger dick, I I could decided I wasn't going to do it.
Oh,
And then we were like 7 years later and we're at home and we were like kind of, I forget, like a family thing, like, I don't know, Thanksgiving or some shit. And we're like having a few drinks, and I like the whole family's there. And I'm like, yo, mom, remember that time you told me I could be a stripper if I wanted to? And my dad goes, you said what? Like
You
he
threw
didn't
her under the
know
bus
about
like
this.
that after she was just a goat mom. That's
Yeah. Well,
incredible.
because I thought that that my dad knew for sure.
Oh, okay, okay.
He didn't know, but she played it so smart. Like that woman, damn, you know. Anyways, so my whole life could have went different. Like I could have decided like I'm gonna do that, and I think about that often because obviously that's like it was just a decision I made in the shower. But it's like, dude, if I decided to do that, like that's a pivotal life changing moment. Like
Yeah, yeah, true,
you
true.
start making 5 grand a weekend as like some kid and like you're
Yeah, some kid from Woodstock where houses were $30,000.
dude,
Like,
I'm making 130, 140 grand a year stripping
yeah.
all the
And then,
people.
and you're also like in that
That's I'd
position,
be dead. I'd be dead.
you'd
I'd
be
be dead.
incentivized to put all your self-worth into how your body looks.
Oh my God, man, my whole life like I mean, I can't say that because who knows? Like maybe I would have hit rock bottom early and then, climb back up and I could be, in a different world. I could be like air quoting again, better off than I am now. I don't know. But like I can't really I know me and like I always make the joke of like I'm really glad that I didn't get gifted with the ability to play the electric guitar because if I did, I would have been dead. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
dude, I would
Yeah.
have been awesome. Like, I would have been just like, let's do the craziest shit all the time, and I would have been dead. And like, yeah, it's just crazy to think like that. It's like, yeah, like these little small decisions, and I don't know why I chose that. Like, it makes no sense why I would have thought that or had that thought and then actually acted on it, and then like go to my boy's house in Toronto and like wake up at 5:30 so I could journal and read probably like Carl Jung or Osho or some Rudolf Steiner book about agriculture. Like, who knows what I was reading back then, but
I
like.
think it was an agriculture book, which made it so much more interesting. I'm like, wow, this man's reading about soil right now, soil quality at like
Yeah,
5:30 on a weekday on his vacation and then
dude, I'll
journaling
take it,
about it.
man.
So, okay, I think we should probably tie back into like kind of what you do now because we haven't
No,
talked about that at all.
we haven't talked about that at all. That's fine.
Okay, so so
This has been great. This
yeah,
has been
this has been a good time. Okay, that was a fucking awesome story. Okay, so now you're kind of back to your roots, your original roots, but you did a full revolution to get there. So you might be in a similar spot, personal trainer, coaching people, a meathead again, but you're a remarkably different person while doing that. Is that a correct analysis of kind of like what you're doing right now?
Yeah, big time. Like I
Yeah.
started out what just felt natural, completely tried a whole different, I guess, identity or path, and then realized that like that wasn't like the archetype of that person wasn't really me. Like I'm not quiet. I can be introverted, but I'm not a quiet introvert. I'm not a person who like tries to play small. Like that's not me. I'm not yeah, I'm not that really that archetype, but I had to learn that because I thought like maybe I should be like that. And then
Mm.
I did it and realized like no, this is actually just creating fires in my life in different ways. So like now I need to figure out how to blend the two. And what you said is perfect. Like I really do feel like I'm gonna be 30 in like whatever 13 days or something. And it's like
No
I
way.
do
Dude, I'm gonna be 30 in like 20 days.
yeah, 24th, April
That's
24th. And I do feel like I am like coming full circle. And in terms of like really fucking understanding myself and loving the qualities that come easy and that I enjoy, but also like being okay with the stuff that I'm not, that good at, and that's fine. And like there were a lot of explosions along the way that I had to learn and like, but it's okay because it took all those things. Could I have done it more efficiently? Probably. Could I have done it, without screwing up so bad a few times? Probably. But it doesn't matter because I'm here now and like now I just have this like whole picture and I'm excited to be 30 and to have this like yeah, this level of just like comfort. I feel like I know who I am. I feel like I'm confident in my abilities. I feel like I've been an idiot long enough where I can be okay when I don't know something and okay to ask for help and be very coachable and yeah. So full circle is exactly kind of how I feel.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, a theme that keeps recurring is just being so okay with making the mistakes. And I can't help but see how much of a pervasive issue that is in what we do with clients. And in people, regardless of clients or not, people who are pursuing health and fitness, there is this fear of making mistakes. Am I doing the wrong program? Am I doing the wrong X? Am I doing the wrong Y? There's almost like a pursuit of like, I need to do the perfect one. And if anything, you're a walking embodiment of like, you also need to know what doesn't work for you. And you have to be okay with making those mistakes. And you have to be, again, to that theory, not the theory, the reminder of how where you are now and how flexible you were in imagining what success was. That's also kind of how successfully implementing like fitness into your life is too, because you are going to imagine going to look a certain way. I have one client that I work with online right now, and she did have and I could hear it in her voice. She had a fantasy of what it was going to look like when she started coaching with me, and it's looked nothing like that. But she's been very flexible in understanding what progress actually looks like, as opposed to it just being this linear thing that what she had signed up for, she's going to get that exact thing. But in reality, she's training a little bit more. She's more confident in the gym. And these are things she's always struggled with. But in her mind, she's like, I just need to like 4 times a week, every single week locked in. And it's like, you got to be okay with the fact that that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you're someone who has taken that leap of faith repeatedly. And I admire you for that. But also I'm curious, like, what would you say to someone who's struggling with that? Like that drive for perfection that's actually at the same time curtailing their ability to make any progress.
Like, what would I say to a person like that? First of all, I in my head, I would say that like these things are often like pretty deep rooted, and like I can say this and hopefully it may resonate with you, but some people just get so paralyzed in their decision making. And like my mentality was always, I would look at people that take forever to make one decision, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I can make 10, fuck 9 of them up, find one, and you haven't made a decision yet. And like, yeah, I've got like maybe some problems I got to deal with or more questions or whatever. But like, that was always my mentality, was just like, I can make 10 decisions, fail at 9. Like the odds of one working out or leading me on another trail that's more interesting or whatever is like is pretty high. So
Yeah.
that's kind of always what I did. Now there's pros and cons to that, like focusing on one thing forever and being like having horse binders on, like that really doesn't work for me. That's like, I was kind of like self-deprecating about that for a long time, like thought like, oh man, you're just kind of like flimsy and you're flaky and like you can't really, but then I realized like, no, it's actually my, like, that's not how I feel. I know I'm not being flimsy or flaky, but like, I just would make like, that was my strong suit. What I would say to somebody like that is like, I think something that is almost annoying maybe is like really kind of sitting down and pressing yourself on like the reason why you're doing what you're doing,
No, yeah, I
and
totally agree.
what's the goal you're trying to get from it. Because like it's easy to say like, I want to lose 30 pounds, or it's easy to say like, I want to make $1 million. Like it's
Yeah.
easy to say those things, but then the next question is like, okay, but why?
Mm.
Oh, well, I used to be 30 pounds lighter, so I want to be that again. Okay,
Huh.
why? Well, because I don't know, because I was born. And then you start like asking why, and you realize like, holy shit, it's actually like, this is a really strong, emotionally driven goal. If you can, it's like if you read books on sales, like you want to get to the emotion, because it's like the emotion is the thing that's going to drive you. Like I'm doing a webinar right now. I'm making a webinar right now for training with me online. And like one of the things that I have is like a slide where it's like, I just want to be healthy, bro. Cause like that's what I hear all the time. And although I don't want to shit on that goal, because like, great, you want to be healthy. That's awesome, man. But like, I just want to be healthy turns into ghosting 3 weeks later, like way too often. I just want to be healthy is a blanket statement, but it doesn't, that's when your car breaks down, when your kids get you sick, when you got a shitty sleep, when a fire happens at work or with the family, or when you get busy, like that, I just want to be healthy, bro, is not going to be strong enough for you to like bunker down and do the thing that you need to do.
Yeah.
And like, I think people that like have a hard time making decisions is, it could potentially be because like they just don't really know, why are you making that decision? Like, what's the thing that you really want? And for me, like I said before, it was never like, it was always a feeling. It was a feeling. And
It's
like,
vibes. This is a big
yeah,
vibes podcast. I always say that.
big vibes podcast. Yeah. It was a feeling. And like, I could think and imagine and literally feel the feeling. And I'm just like, okay, like that's what I want. It was rarely a thing. Like if I ever had a thing, like I want to have big arms so I can get the girl. Like that just never really worked for me. Like that always blew up in my face, to be honest with you. Like it wasn't like
You wanted to be accepted in that position, or you wanted to be like, I don't know, you want a connection, really. What like, that always goes one deeper. Like if you're like, oh,
right,
I just want the big arms to get the girl or the guy or whatever. I'm like, those are you want connection, really, or you want to use other humans as for validation.
right,
That's also a thing that we do sometimes. And I've done that myself. It's
for
not a
sure.
good feeling, but it is a feeling and it's a motivating one. But it's one of those things that once you get it, you're like, yeah, this is hollow.
The thing I was gonna say, like, even if it is a superficial goal, I get like I want you to say it out loud because like if someone says like someone would hit me up with like, hey man, like I'm feeling really good, but like I know this is kind of superficial, but like I just really want to have like I want to have abs. Or like I really want to just look better with my shirt off this year. I'm like, dude, that is not superficial. Like, tell me that, bro. Like if that's what you want and that's like you don't have to figure it out where that comes from or why you feel like you're going to be a better person, like you don't like treat that as step one. If it's a big staircase, that's the staircase, and if that's the stair you need to
Mhm.
climb, like let's get you fucking sick abs, let's get you looking amazing, like let's when you take your shirt off, let's get your girl to go like, what the hell happened to you? You know what I mean? Like sure,
Yeah.
let's do that, and then when we get on that step, you're going to ask more questions,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
actually a
we're
good
going
way
to
to
keep
put it. Yeah, yeah. That's a really good way to put it because my first inclination there to be like, that is a superficial goal. I think objectively it is, but you're saying it's not only a superficial goal. In a vacuum, saying you want to look a certain way can also lead you to exploring what that actually means, but it does get you moving, right? And
right.
to your point, it made me think of you making 10 decisions and nine of them are being incorrect. But you did something and maybe one of them is correct. So the goal might be I want to look a certain way. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But then you start doing it, and then a couple things will happen. Maybe you achieve it, and you're like, hell yeah, that's cool. And then you're obviously not going to stop there, or hopefully you're not going to stop there. You're like, hey, what's next? Then you keep going, or you start trying. And you're like, maybe there's something deeper that I actually am looking for. So
Mhm.
then you're again, the mistakes you're making are leveraging you to ask greater questions and learn more, or you achieve the goal and realize that actually wasn't what you're looking for. But to tie back into your story, you learned what you don't want. And you also had one more repetition in being like, I know what to do in order to achieve a goal, as where you mentioned the portable skills that you've learned, you kind of take those into everything. If you're going to try something new, there's a couple base foundational habits that they're not specific to everything, but they're damn well going to help you in almost everything you do. That's consistency, that's honesty, that's whatever skills you developed. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm doing those here. And if I'm not able to, maybe I just don't care. Maybe, and again, that's also worth knowing too.
Right. And I think like, there's some things that don't happen by accident, like get it going from, a body that you're not happy with to a body that you really are happy with and confident in and whatever. Like that doesn't happen on accident. It doesn't happen overnight. And it can happen, through like you can take steroids, but like you don't learn and I'm not shitting on steroids. I'm really not. But like I
For
think
pro
there's
steroids.
I think there's a time and I think there's a time and a place for him. Yeah. I think there's a time and a place for him, but like for 99% of people, stop. You're trying to do a cheat code and like you're just trying to fast track a feeling that you should get through hard work and consistent dedication. But like so you can't go from a body that you don't feel comfortable in, you're not confident in, like whatever, and to a body that you are overnight. It's not going to happen, right? It's going to take hard work, consistency, and dedication. And like that's why I think if people want to start there, and I actually like I had like the Pump for Summer program and I have like Get Jacked in my messaging a lot because it's like, I when I was that other way, of course I didn't really care about that because I was like, no, like you need to like meditate, you need to breathe, you need to stress management, you need to like do all this stuff, you need to eat organic food, like you need to do all this stuff. But then it's like, yeah, but you know what? Like that stuff is so complex and out of the question for a lot of people that like,
Yeah.
dude, just start with getting jacked and get jacked in a way where you're like, you're focusing on your food quality, you're managing your stress, you're not going out and like raging on the weekends every single weekend and like live a life where you're jacked and you're healthy. And as you do that, like I said, it's like a staircase. And I get a lot of If I get a guy who comes in, their confidence is really low, they're like kind of like hiding themselves when they talk. I'm like, dude, you should like let's just get you jacked and strong.
Mm,
Like, let's just start there. And then in that, you start to kind of like feed this like this lion inside of you, so to speak. And it's just like, I don't care what you do. And like 10 times out of 10, it's not that like, oh, I want to keep getting more jacked. It's like,
yeah.
oh, I actually really love playing music and I'm going to start singing for people. Or, oh, I actually really like have always wanted to like get a promotion at my job, but I've never been confident enough to ask for it. Or like, I've always wanted to start my own business, but I've been too scared. And it's like, dude, those tasks are external tasks. Those are things that are outside of you that you have control. Whereas, like, what you put in your body, how you train your body, how you talk to yourself, how you do all that stuff, like that is the base layer foundation. And if we can get your body to a point where it's like, this person did not get there on accident, this person has worked, like pretty hard, shown dedication, shown consistency, and shown up for themselves every day for a long period of time, then like those external things start becoming easier. Your world gets a little bit bigger, and not always. Like, you can be jacked and your life's a wreck, but like you can, like, you know what I mean? You can have abs and like completely be a train wreck of a human being. But like, it's if we started digging into that person's life, like, oh, okay, yeah, you look great, but like you're not that healthy. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah. In a dynamic way, like in a three-dimensional way.
right. So if
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can do those things simultaneously, like it really acts as a stepping stone to something greater and allows you to see how big the world is. Like, you can do anything. Like
no,
you
I
can.
get exactly what you're saying. Because
Yeah.
to be frank, most people don't get jacked, right? Like only a
Right.
certain amount of people get jacked. But really, what that actually ends up looking like, people get fucking confident in themselves because the amount of times, and this when I was super body focused when I was younger, couldn't fathom this, but I had tons of clients who their body hadn't really changed much, like very marginally, but they just had fucking like big dick energy all of a sudden. And I'm like, and they were so confident in themselves because they started training hard and they started investing in themselves and taking time for themselves and starting to feel confident in their body. And even if it doesn't change physically, the transformation that I've seen from some people, and even in myself, where in periods, because I'm trying to be less body appearance centric, even in periods where I'm training more and I'm like getting strong and I'm doing it, I do feel even if my body looks the same, my experience in that body is different because my experience in my psyche is one that has more belief in myself. And that does transcend like classic fucking dude content for like, hey, how to meet girls and whatever. They almost always say go to the gym. And I think the
Mhm.
superficial thing is, oh yeah, is that way you look a certain way? But if I'm and I know enough about the research of how people like responders to strength training. I've seen people who do the same program as someone else and gain 4 times more muscle. Like some people are just genetically not built to build a lot of muscle. But regardless of that, what the gym can do, and it's not just the gym thing. I think the gym is from a cultural perspective, it's one thing that as adults we do that's new, where we learn new skills and we develop confidence in our ability to execute on those skills. There's almost not many other things that people engage in a new skill in as an adult outside of the gym. Might be skiing or something like that, but people also get real confident in themselves from that. They're like, dude, or learning an instrument. Like right now I'm learning Spanish, and every time I get better at it, I feel so much more confident because it is just something that I'm like, I didn't think I could do it. I put in the effort and I did it. And now I feel it's another repetition of proof that I can do what I set out to achieve. And the gym is just the one of the best ones and a good entry point. And there's community in it, et cetera, where people start to believe in themselves, regardless of any change in their body. There is a huge change in their psyche. And like, I'm not surprised for you to share that you've had clients who, you know what, they come in, then they start training. Cause I've had the similar thing where they're like, you know what, I actually want to start playing music. You know, like, where'd that come from? Like that, the staircase, the first step might have been, let's get jacked. But reality is like, dude, let's get you believing in yourself again. Cause somewhere along the way you stopped, and understandably that's very common, but this can be a great tool that is hitting two birds with one stone. Like you're getting fit, objectively healthier, but psychologically, you're starting to believe in yourself more.
Yeah, and like the gym is kind of like the adult playground. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
and it's also it's kind of a vulnerable place too, right? Like you're wearing like the clothes you wear, you're directly like showcasing how much you can lift, or if you know what you're doing. Do you look like a
true.
moron when you lift, or do you know, like, are you an experienced lifter? Like, these things are all, yeah, it is kind of that place for a lot of people. So it's like, on one hand, it's uncomfortable, but on the other hand, it's kind of like it's good because we do need a little bit of that in our lives. And like, you can get like wear a bunch of swag and like look really sick, but your body under those clothes is a mess. Or you can like, be unhealthy, but wear a suit that makes you look like a badass, or drive a car that makes, right. Like in the gym, when you got shorts and a t-shirt on, you're, trying to RDL for the first time, like
Oh, it
you
can
get
be, yeah, it can be
shorts, you know what I
humbling.
mean? Like you're
Yeah, I
like,
know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, so it's just like it's really good. It's really good in that sense, and like overcoming those things, and being okay with feeling silly, and being okay with like, not doing great at something, and kind of getting good at laughing at yourself a little bit. It's like these skills and stuff like can carry over into other areas of your life, because it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like you're going to go through a period of like you suck, and then you got to chuckle at yourself and keep going and figure it out. And then it's like, I forget that graph curve or whatever, but it's like where you start out at something and you get kind of competent and you think you're a genius, and then you learn like, you learn so much stuff, and by the end of it, you know way more, but you realize you don't know anything compared to like
Oh,
what's up there.
yeah,
It's
the,
like,
the, the
I
standard
think,
the standard distribution, like on both
yeah,
sides of it, like the Dunning-Kruger effect.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that stuff, like I'm I can, sit here and talk about like my experiences and stuff, but if you start drilling me on like neuroscience or quantum mechanics, like I oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, like
I'm just a boy.
there's so much stuff that
Yeah.
like you just can't know. And the quicker you accept it is just like, and just lead with curiosity, the easier shit is.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think we're gonna have to kind of end this now.
okay.
But I'm definitely gonna have to have you back on because we didn't even, dude, we didn't get to
Did we get
one
through any
fucking.
questions?
Part of me, dude, earlier this week I'm writing these questions and I'm like, this is a fucking waste of time. I know we're not. We're gonna get to the first one and we're just gonna talk shit and it's just gonna be a good time. Like I
Did
knew
we
it
get to
was,
number two?
we didn't get to number two.
Yes, that's
Well, yeah.
awesome.
So now,
Cool.
like that, well, I'm gonna have you on. We'll probably do a little more specific of a talk next time, but this was good. Um, where can people find you and kind of what do you offer?
Yeah, so my website is beoriginalcoaching.com. My Instagram is my name, Tywoelfle, Ty Woelfle. And what I offer is 12-week coaching programs to men between the ages of 25 and 35. So we do full spectrum coaching. We do nutrition, write meal plans for you. We do strength training. We either do like 10, 5, or 3 rep max testing in the beginning. We do conditioning based testing, figure out your VO2 max. And then through 12 weeks, we improve those metrics.
Cool.
Plus, let's say somebody comes, they need one thing specific, like they have a bad ankle or they have a bad hip, then I'll use kind of a lot of the rehab corrective exercise stuff that I was doing before and just tack that on. But that's it, man. Like just very bare bones, vanilla strength and conditioning. We have a community that's growing where I go live. I'm in there talking a lot. I do live meetups called the Combine.
That's
Yeah.
sick. In Ottawa, you
Yeah.
do those?
Pardon me?
In Ottawa, you do those?
Yeah, the at Can-Am. At Can-Am. There's one this Saturday. It's the second Saturday of every month. But yeah, try and just make it like, yeah, try and make it as interactive as I can, and try and give people as many different, ways to consume the content and the information as possible. So it's like, I know community is important. I
Mm.
know, reading something's important. I know seeing something's important. I know touch points are important. So these are all things that I'm like continuously kind of just, or continually like putting into my business to just try and, yeah, just really try and deliver so much more value than just like, hey, thanks for, signing up, here's your workout. Like I really try and go overboard with that. And yeah, man, it's growing all the time. So that's
Hell
what
yeah.
that's what we're doing over here.
Hell yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put all that stuff in the show notes and I'm also gonna put your Instagram. That's where you're most active, right? On Instagram.
Yeah, I just do like I just do Instagram.
Yeah, so I'll put that in there too. So if anyone liked the vibe from this, give him a follow, check out what he offers, and he'll be back on soon because this was a good chat. We have like 5 other questions to get to, so
Five
we'll have
more
to answer those at
episodes.
some point, eh?
5 more episodes.
Yeah,
One
yeah, 5
question.
more episodes. One question. Everybody knows the rules.
That was good. That was
Yeah.
good.
All right, brother.
Take care,
I'll,
buddy.
I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you for listening to today's episode. That's going to be all for today, other than me reminding you to like this, follow this, share this, slide my DMs, send me money. I don't care. Support is support, and I'll take it however I can get it. So remember, if you want to support the show, actually the best way to do that is leave a review wherever you listen, share this, and then if you want to work with me, apply for coaching online, which you can do with the link in the show notes. And I'm also going to leave Tyler's information down there too. Even though he's competition, that's how dedicated I am to the greatness of this game. No, I'm just kidding. He does offer some good stuff too. And I think we just might serve different people better. So I'll leave both the information down there, and make sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode, because I know you love me yapping in your little ears. So I'll see you next time. And as always, cheers.